that has played his way into the first round conversation is Cedric Coward at Duke. Coming from Washington State, he's played 6 games, not even at the high major level, at the WCC level last year, and has now gone from being a guy that started his career at Division I to being a potential first-round pick. Isaac, you were able to catch up with him at the Combine yesterday as well. Here is that interview.
100% focused on the draft. Talking to Coach Shire and the staff, I think I communicate pretty much everything with them as I gain information, and they're 100% with me on my focus of the draft right now because this is my dream. So at the moment, I'm 100% focused on the draft.
What do you need to hear to stay in the draft?
Honestly, I don't have like a specific thing I need to hear. Obviously, if it's like you're going to be a lottery pick, then yeah, I'm going to leave. But at the end of the day, I don't know if it's something specific I need to hear. I just know it's a conversation with my agent that will help me decide and, with the best information I have for the best decision for me.
How would Duke help you?
Oh, tremendously. There's a reason I picked them, It kind of sucks because people think like I'm using Duke for, just the noise or whatever it is, or whatever it may be. But I picked them, and I love Coach Shire and the staff for a reason. And I believe they can help me if I were to go there. And, you see what they did this year. They got the whole starting lineup in the draft combine. So, I know they'll help me if I go there, too.
How would you describe the strengths of your game right now?
Now, I asked you to advise Yaxel Lindenberg, guys. I'm not going to ask you to advise Cedric Coward. I don't think Cedric Coward needs advice from anybody. I think, in fact, we should hire him as an advisor for the Field of 68 because that dude's got a good head on his shoulders. What I will say is I think he's in a little bit of a different spot than Yaxel in the sense that he is getting drafted partly because of the upside and the potential that he has a chance to be really, really good, right? And if he goes to Duke, and let's just say it doesn't work out great, I think that there's more of a chance where he could end up sliding and not being able to capitalize on the opportunity that he has right now. So if I was him, I would probably be keeping my name in the draft at this point, even if it means I'm the 35th pick and I'm going to end up getting a 3-year deal with a year and a half guaranteed at like the NBA minimum or whatever it ends up being. Is that, Isaac, you think that's a crazy opinion to have?
No, I'm right there with you. I think I'd stay in, just that stock, it feels like it's just gone up through the roof. And there's something about momentum, right? Like, I think back of like, remember when Arthur Kaluma was a really big, like poppy name right after some of those heater games in the NCAA tournament way back in the day? Like he chose to go back to school and sometimes it just doesn't work out, right? Like I think Kaluma would probably still be in the league if he had gone into the draft way back then. So I think with Coward, just like the situation of like, hey, I'm finally starting to get healthy. He's barely played over the last few years. The idea of what Cedric Coward could be is maybe better than what the tape has so far shown. Now, I like the tape. I was texting our boy Mike LaTulip about Cedric Coward a year ago at this time when he was transferring out of Eastern Washington to Washington State, and I liked him. Like, and I think a lot of teams really like that idea of him too. But again, I'm kind of with you. It feels like how much higher could your stock be if you go to Duke and you're, the second best player on a good team, or maybe even the third best player, a souped up role player in some ways. Like, I think he's got to stay.
Yeah, stay in the draft. Stay in the draft. He's smart enough to understand this right now. I think he will go in the first round, so I think he'll get a guarantee. Every NBA exec that I've kind of talked to feels like, his backstop is probably the end of the first round. So I think he'll be fine. Go and like I said, I think Duke feels probably the same way right now, that he's likely to stay in the draft, which means they got to figure something out because I've said this before. I like their roster. Don't get me wrong. I like it. I just doesn't overwhelm me right now. And then you take Cedric Coward out of there, even less so. So they got some work to do. They got to find somebody else that can be an impact player.
The Duke roster is actually really interesting to me, right? Like even before the Cedric, even with Cedric Coward, right? They did not really make I was expecting them to make a little bit more of a splash in the portal. And a lot of this is, if you're able to get Isaiah Evans and Malik Brown and Caleb Foster back, that's probably more valuable than anybody that you could pull out of the portal, especially when you're trying to build a culture and a brotherhood the way that Duke is. Where do you stand on what this team looks like right now? Let's assume that Cedric is staying in the draft. Do they need another piece? Do they need multiple pieces? And do they have enough, Isaac, to be able to compete? We're not just talking about ACC championships. Like, it's Duke. You got to compete for Final Fours and national titles.
Well, they certainly would need another piece of Cedric Coward to parts, right? But I think if they're able to get like a James Sarr, for example, the Italian wing, who probably he's a 5-star type of caliber prospect. Again, if they get Sarr, you're looking at a program that would have insane, size at all 5 positions. You're talking 6'5", 6'6", 6'8", 6'9", 7 foot, like at all 5 spots. So, at minimum, I'm already talking myself into that Duke front court next year as one of the best in college basketball. I think Patrick Ngongba is a stud. I think you throw Cam Boozer into that mix. I think he's awesome. Malik Brown, if his shoulder can stay intact, he's going to be one of the elite defenders. Those 3 guys splitting 80 front court minutes, like I'm totally in on those 3 right there. I think that team could be really versatile up front, and then you're just kind of filling it in with positional size. And I think everybody's going to look at Duke and be like, well, they don't really have that proven guy. But I kind of push back and go like, what would Isaiah Evans have averaged if he had gone somewhere else? If he wasn't on a super talented team last year, what would Caleb Foster have averaged if he was on like a middling ACC team last year? 17, 18 points a game. So it's like, yeah, like they don't have like that proven, no doubt dude. And certainly they need another piece if they lose Coward. But like that front court's awesome, and that they're talented. They're still really, really talented when you kind of factor in, the pedigree of Evans, the pedigree of Foster, and the type of player that James Sarr could be, assuming they're able to get that one done.
Yeah, and I'm going to stake my claim on Caden Boozer Island right now and say that dude's going to end up being an NBA player as well. Might not be a one and done, but that dude will play in the NBA. And
he's the key for their team next year. He's the key for their team because he's a guy who can just set everybody up. And if you've got enough guys around him, which they should, right? Isaiah Evans puts on a little bit of weight, and Caleb Foster played more towards the end of the year, kind of got his confidence back a little bit. He's got his brother who's a walking double-double. And like you said, if Malik Brown can stay healthy, he's just one of those guys that doesn't need to score to be effective. He's a great role guy. So, I think one more guy, whether it's Cedric Coward or somebody else, and then you're in business. But all I'm saying is without Cedric Coward, without him, you look at Duke's roster and you're like, it's good, but it's not like you look at it and you're like, holy shit, it's not that good.